Hello everyone, and today I will be taking a look at what All-Stars would look like if there were no eliminations ever. In other words, what if every season had the All-Star 7/All-Stars 9 format? First up is All-Stars 2, and since the format is only designed to work with 8 queens, I will have to cut 2. I floated around a couple ideas, but ultimately I decided to go with Adore Delano and Ginger Minj. Not only did neither one of them really want to be on the season, but along with Coco, they had the least impact on the season as a whole. Instead of rejudging every single season, since I highly doubt everyone wants to sit here and watch me rejudge 6 entire seasons, I'm just going to determine which queens win which challenges. Since we're basing this off the original season, I think the talent show and snatch game are going to stay the same. Katya, Alaska, Tatiana, and Roxy all have 1 win. The first actual conflict we see is the Rusical. Listening to the full version of the All-Stars 2 Rusical, I think the winning parts here could be Marie Antoinette, Cleopatra, Annie Oakley, and Joan of Arc. All of that said, based off the fact that they both would have great parts, I think Alyssa and Coco would both slay, and let's be honest, I don't think production would pass up the opportunity for an Alyssa versus Coco rematch. With that in mind, the winners of the Rusical are going to be Coco and Alyssa. For the acting challenge, I highly doubt that either Coco or Tatiana could outact Alyssa or Jeremy, so they will stay the top 2. For the comedy challenge, the teams are Alyssa and Alaska, Tatiana and Detox, Jeremy and Coco, and Katya and Roxy. With that in mind, we're judging in teams, and the top 2 are Detox and Tatiana. The 2 original winning pairs both did a great job, but I think Detox and Tatiana did an overall better job. While Jeremy would put up a fight, I think the advertising challenge still goes to Katya and Alaska. The makeover is where things get interesting yet again. Based off everything I've seen of Jeremy's drag, I have no doubt that he would win the makeover, so now it's down to Katya or Detox. From what we saw in the season, if I had to pick a winner, it would be Katya, so Katya will get the second slot in the final 2. The final challenge is the Rumix, and while a lot of queens would put up a fight, I think it's going to Katya and Tatiana. We saw what Katya was able to do with this song, and as for Tatiana, she wrote same parts. We know she can write a verse, it would be iconic, and I think they would be the top 2. With all of that in mind, the final 4 of the season are Alaska, Katya, Tatiana, and Jeremy. The lip sync for the crown plays out, and I don't think there is a single scenario in which production doesn't let the top 2 be Alaska and Katya. Alaska and Katya lip sync for the crown, and I honestly don't know who this would go to. I'm leaning towards Katya, but honestly, I think they're going to be the final 2 of the season in almost any timeline. Next up is All-Stars 3, and yet again we are going to have to cut 2 queens from this cast. For this season, I decided to go with BB and Milk. For Milk, I hate to say it because she is very talented, but I think she fits the bill of an All-Star the least of anyone here. Then for BB, as talented as she is a former winner, and I don't think with a limited amount of casting slots, production is going to cast someone just for shock value. Now for the actual season, we are starting off with the talent show. Since everyone here was in the original talent show, the top 2 are going to stay Aja and Dela. Episode 2 is the Rusical. There were 2 parts that were very obviously written to win, and I don't think there is a single timeline in which they don't. Dela and Shangela still win. Then for the improv challenge, it's pretty much the same deal. Thorgy is great, but I don't think she'd be able to outdo Kennedy and Dela. The 4th challenge is Snatch Game, and this is where things started to get a bit difficult. While on the original season, Dela and Shangela won, in this timeline we have Thorgy and we have Aja, who is always a contender for this win. I believe Thorgy's Snatch Game pick was Lily Tomlin, and I think she would do a great job with that if Season 8 is any indication, so for that, I think she's going to get the win with Dela, although I could definitely see production giving it to Shangela. The ball is where things get even more interesting, as in this timeline, we have no BB, and we don't need to throw Aja under the bus. Factoring in the overall sewing skills and comedy skills of all of these queens, I think the top 2 are going to be Trixie and then either Aja or Chi Chi. This was not the strongest showing for Chi Chi, but one place she was always able to shine was charisma. That would help her a lot in a challenge like this. If you add on the fact that production did not care for Aja and would probably want everyone to have at least 1 win, I think the top 2 are going to be Chi Chi and Trixie. For the girl group challenge, I think we would have the same team distribution we originally had, and the top 2 are going to be the strongest queen from each team, which is going to be Dela and Aja. For the terrible Final 5 acting challenge, I think Dela would do really well, but I think production would very much like to spread out the wins here, so I think it's going to go to Shangela and Trixie because production would definitely want both of them in the finals. The final challenge is the Rumix, and I think the top 2 are going to be Trixie and then either Aja or Morgan. I think Aja would do an overall great job, but on the other hand, production didn't really like her. Then with Morgan, I think she would do a solid job, but once again, I think production would intervene to make sure that Morgan gets a win, since I highly doubt that with a format this new, they would let someone go to the end with literally 0 wins. All of this results in a final 4 of Dela, Shangela, Trixie, and Aja. I don't want to say this should have been the original final 4, but it definitely could have been. The final 4 lip sync for the crown, while we did not get to see her perform too much on the season, I do think Aja would be able to beat Shangela. That leaves us with the big question of Dela versus Trixie. I think in general Dela is a stronger lip syncer than Trixie, but on the other hand, I do think there are a few songs where Trixie could beat Dela. With this in mind, I'm not going to pick a single person to win, but I will say that if Dela beats Trixie, Dela wins the season. If Trixie beats Dela, Aja wins. Next up is All-Stars 4, and while I don't want to say it was easy picking 2 queens to cut, this is probably the easiest it got. Pheromone and Jasmine Masters are both incredibly talented, but I think they are the clear 2 that would need to be cut here. Getting into the actual judging, I think the talent show is going to go to Trinity and Mo. For girl groups, we have the same cast we originally did, so it's going to be Monet and Valentina. For the Snatch Game, Naomi is once again going to be robbed, and it's going to be Trinity and Manila. Episode 4 is the Improv Challenge, and while I do feel Gia could do, like, shockingly well in a challenge like this, I don't think she's going to be in the top 2 over Manila or Mo. Next is the Roast, and while once again I think Gia would do shockingly well, I cannot imagine anyone but Manila or Monet getting this win. Next up is the Club Design Challenge. The teams are going to be Manila, Latrice, and Trinity, Mo and Naomi, and then Naomi, Valentina, and Gia. The clear winning team is going to be Trinity, Manila, and Latrice, with the top 2 of the week being Latrice and Trinity. Next up is the Makeover, and while Valentina would do a great job here, I think the production would still give it to Monet and Naomi. Every season of All-Stars has to have a terrible acting challenge, and for this season, I think the top 2 are Trinity and Mo. Manila would put up a great fight, but I think I'm sticking with the original top 2. Next up is the Rumix. I think Valentina would do a great job here, but ultimately, the winners are going to be Monet and Naomi. This gives us a final 4 of Trinity, Manila, Mo, and Monet. For the lip sync for the crown, I believe production would rig it so that the pairs are Mo versus Monet and Manila versus Trinity. I think based off what we saw in the finale, Monet would beat Mo, and then for Manila and Trinity, I'm not really sure. A majority of the time, I would give it to Manila, but Trinity still has a shot. As a result, I think the season is going to be a double crowning between Monet and either Manila or Trinity, whichever one of them wins that lip sync. Next up is All-Stars 5, and I do not want to be shady in any way, but this is probably the most options I had in terms of who I should cut. This may be controversial, but I think production would be the fastest to give the chop to India and Mariah, so that is what I'm gonna go with. Getting right into the season, the talent show is going to be Alexis, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, Cracker. For girl groups, I think it's going to be Shay and Blair. For the Hotel Design Challenge, I don't think Angina or Derek would do great here. But since we're going for a top 2 instead of a top 1, I think I'm going to go with Mayhem and Blair. Next up is the Improv Challenge. I think Derek would do pretty well here, but I'm going to give it to Cracker and Jujubee. Some parts in that challenge were literally just written to win. Next is Snatch Game. I think it's going to be Shay and Juju, but it could very easily be Shay and Alexis. Then for the ball, based off everything we saw this season out of Derek, Mayhem, and Angina, I think the top 2 are going to be Cracker and Shay. The Comedy Challenge is going to go to Cracker and Shay yet again for pretty much the same reasons, although Alexis would probably do a great job here. The final challenge is the Rumix. Shea Coulee dominates this and is one of the top 2. Then for the other slot, I think I'm gonna go with Derek, because at this point, I think production would be fine having a queen with no stars. I don't think they would be fine with having 2 queens with literally 0 stars. The final 4 of the season are Shay, Juju, Cracker, and by some grace of God, Blair St. Clair. Factoring in these queens' lip sync skills in the lip sync for the crown, the final 2 are Shay and Jujubee. I don't think there is any question there. As for winner, Jujubee has 2 wins to Shea Coulee's 5, and Shea Coulee won that final lip sync. This is not a competition. Next up is All-Star 6, and this one is a bit difficult because I have to cut 5 queens. I floated around a lot of options, but I decided to go with Jiggly, Akira, and Serena, as well as the returning queens Pandora and Yara. I would also like to make it clear that in this timeline, Ginger Minj does not count as a returning queen as she was not on All-Stars 2. Since I got rid of pretty much every early out on the season, the first few episodes are going to play out pretty much exactly as they did normally. The top 2 for the talent show are going to be Raja and Jan, since in this timeline, production doesn't really have as much incentive to crack Jan. The ball is going to go to Raja and Scarlett for pretty much the same reason. Scarlett did a great job, and in this format, I think production has a much bigger incentive to be fair. For the advertising challenge, I don't know how the queens are going to split off here, but I think the top 2 are going to be Raja and Trinity. For the Rusical, we have a very obvious top 2 of Trinity and Jan. For the Pink Table Talk challenge, we saw pretty much everyone here participate, and I think it's going to be Eureka and Ginger. For the acting challenge, I think Scarlett would do great here, but Ginger was great, and production desperately wanted to get Kylie a win, so they are the top 2. Then for girl groups, I think there's a pretty solid argument for a lot of these queens, but since there were technically 2 different groups, I'm gonna do the strongest queen of each group, which is going to be Trinity and Kylie. Next is Snatch Game. I think it's going to be Eureka and Ginger, but I think it could also very easily be Ginger and Kylie. It's mainly just a question of how these groups play out. Then for the design challenge, since I don't think production would let this opportunity pass them by, it's going to be a Raja and Scarlett rematch for the 3rd time. Next is the comedy challenge, and it's going to be Silky versus Eureka, although yet again, Kylie would put up a very strong fight. Then for the Rumix, while Trinity would do a great job, I think production is going to give it to Kylie and Raja. They are very good friends, they both did great in the challenge, and I think production would do anything they could to stop Trinity from making the finale. For the first time in 4 seasons, we have a 4-way tie to get to the finale. Raja has 5 wins and is definitely making the finale, which means she gets to pick which 3 queens she takes. That is not really fair, but that is almost definitely what production would do. I believe based off season performance and overall lip sync skill, she's going to take Kylie, Eureka, and Ginger, cutting Trinity at 5th. Is it fair? No. Is it popular? No. But is it what production would want to happen? Absolutely. The lip sync for the crown plays out, and the final 2 of the season are almost definitely going to be Raja and Kylie. I don't know who production gives this to. Yes, Raja has more wins, but on the original season, that clearly was not an issue for production. I think I'm still gonna go with Raja anyway, but there is a legitimate shot that Kylie still wins in this timeline. Finishing us out, we have All-Stars 8, where I have to cut 4 queens. I had to make some very difficult choices, but I believe the queens that I will be cutting are Darian Lake, James Mansfield, Monica Beverly Hills, and Naysha Lopez. While this cast was definitely designed to get Jimbo to the end, getting into the judging, the top 2 for girl groups are going to be Kahana and Lala. I don't feel I need to justify that. For the acting challenge, since production has more incentive to balance out the wins, I think it's going to be Jimbo and Kasha. For the same reasons, I think the ball is going to go to Jessica and Heidi. Next is the acting challenge, and I don't know how the teams would play out with only 8 queens, but regardless, I think the top 2 are going to be Jimbo and Candy. Next is Snatch Game, and it's pretty much a question of Jimbo versus either Alexis or Kasha. I believe that based off who production wanted to push, they would give it to Alexis, but I think Kasha would be very deserving. Next is the Rusical. We saw almost all of these queens perform. It's going to be Lala and Candy. Next is the Improv Challenge, and while I do think that Heidi and Kasha would put up a great fight, Jessica and Lala were incredibly iconic and gave some of the strongest performances of the season. Then we have the Design Challenge, which I think is going to go to Alexis and Heidi, although Jimbo and Kahana would also do pretty well. Next is the Roast, and I think everyone but Kahana has a genuine shot at doing well. I think I'm gonna go with Jimbo and Jessica though. The final challenge is the makeover, and I don't think we know what any queen would do here outside of Jimbo, Candy, and Jessica. Factoring in what we did see, as well as the overall runways throughout the season, I think it's going to be Candy and either Jessica or Heidi. As a result of that, the win distribution going into the finale is very difficult. We know Jimbo has a guaranteed slot, but I think anyone out of Heidi, Candy, Lala, and Jessica could make it to the end. Factoring in a lip sync for the crown, I can't imagine Jimbo winning this, which leaves us with these 4 queens. In the event that Jessica is eliminated in 5th place, I think Lala takes it home. In the event that literally anyone but Jessica gets eliminated, I think it is very safe to say that she takes home the season. Do you want non-Emmy nominated gay shit? Well then you should check out the RuPaul's Drag Race Rejudged YouTube channel and hit subscribe.